The shocking hidden secret of Zacchaeus. Why did Jesus call him down? And what happened next? Few knew what truly happened that night in Jericho. The air crackled with an electric tension as whispers coursed through the crowd. Men, women, and children pushed forward, their eyes glued to the singular figure that stood far above them. Zacchaeus, the short and despised tax collector, had climbed a sycamore tree, trying desperately to catch a glimpse of Jesus. To many, he was a thief, a traitor. But that night, his desperate act was about to shake everything. History tells us Jericho was a bustling crossroads, famous for its palms and rich soil. But under the surface, it was thick with animosity. Tax collectors were viewed as the scum of society. They enriched themselves at the expense of their own people, collecting money for the Roman oppressors. Zacchaeus carried the weight of that disdain on his shoulders. He probably felt every stone glare piercing his back, every disparaging remark slicing through the air like a blade. But none of that mattered now. He needed to see Jesus, that he could hear the roar of the crowd. He's coming. He's coming. The people surged with excitement, a tide of desperate hope rising and falling. Jesus was a healer, a teacher, a miracle worker. And yet, who would choose a criminal to call by name? The thought was blasphemous. As Zacchaeus wondered if he'd ever be worthy of such attention, he felt the rough bark scrape against his skin, grounding him in the moment. Then it happened. Jesus stopped beneath the tree, fully aware of the watchful eyes all around him. Zacchaeus' heart raced. An overwhelming rush of air filled his lungs as he locked eyes with the Savior. Zacchaeus, come down immediately. The crowd gasped. How could he call that man? Gasps turned to murmurs of disbelief. Some even spat in disgust. Why would Jesus choose him? Zacchaeus' fingers trembled on the branches. What did this mean? Could it be a cruel joke? Or was there a chance of redemption? The thought nearly took his breath away as he spat out words caught in his throat. Why me? It felt impossible, yet here he was being drawn from shame into the spotlight. Tension thickened in the air. The onlookers watched with a strange mix of horror and anticipation. What would this infamous traitor do next? How could he respond to such an unexpected grace? Would he reject it or fall to his knees in tears? The responses of the townsfolk ranged from fury to fear, their fates intertwining with Zacchaeus. How many of them would dare to stand under the same roof as him now? Even as he climbed down, doubt churned in his gut. The crowd closed in around them, filled with judgment. Would they see a sinner, or would they finally glimpse a man seeking salvation? What happened next might change everything he believed about himself. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Zacchaeus descended from the sycamore tree, the murmurs swelled to a cacophony. With each branch he descended, the weight of the crowd pressed down harder. What kind of man would openly associate with him? His heart fluttered in a mix of fear and hope, each step closer to the ground echoing with the uncertainty of his fate. When his feet touched the ground, he stood face to face with Jesus, whose eyes were kind yet piercing with understanding. The air thickened with anticipation. Zacchaeus, I must stay at your house today, Jesus declared, breaking through the noise of disbelief. Invisible chains tightened around the tax collector's heart, binding him to a life of isolation and shame. Could he invite this holy man into the home that reflected his treacherous ways? The crowd roared in protest. Of all people, why him? Cried one man, his voice dripping with disgust. Doesn't he know who he is? Another echoed, their anger palpable. The judgment flared like fire, and Zacchaeus felt its heat wash over him. Each accusation felt like an arrow, each glance a reminder of the life he had led. He was not deserving. Yet, Jesus stood unwavering, reaching out to Zacchaeus. "Come, my friend." It was an invitation saturated with grace, breaking through the barriers erected by society. A wave of warmth touched the outcast's heart. Could this truly be meant for him? As they proceeded towards his home, a hushed tone fell over the crowd, now a parade of murmurs and hushed whispers laced with confusion. All they had known of Zacchaeus crumbled at the soft-spoken words of the man from Galilee. Would Jesus see through the facade that had protected him for so long? Could he truly help him change? Zacchaeus led the way with trembling hands. Each step echoed with the weight of his past, the money he extorted, the families he broke apart. "Look at all that I have done," he reflected silently. "How can I ever repay their trust?" Yet, in the glow of Jesus' presence, something shifted within him, a stirring of possibility. Upon arriving at his home, the door creaked open, revealing a space that felt foreign to the tax collector. Dust lingered in the corners, echoes of his own failures taunting him still. Yet, welcoming Jesus shattered the silence. As they entered, Zacchaeus could only wonder what the humble surroundings would do in the presence of such divinity. With Jesus seated, conversation began to flow, each word punctuating the barriers around his heart. "I come to bring hope," Jesus spoke gently. "The lost are found in the unlikeliest of places." The weight of those words resonated deep within Zacchaeus. Hope had always felt distant. Around the table, perspective began to shift. As they shared the simple meal, a new life rhythm emerged. For the first time in years, Zacchaeus caught a glimpse of who he might be, removed from the name society had branded him with. The warmth of fellowship contrasted sharply with the coldness he felt from the townspeople outside. With every moment spent in Jesus' presence, Zacchaeus felt the layers of shame begin to peel away. But what baffled him still was the question that slipped through his mind. Would he truly let himself be changed? As laughter echoed and stories flowed like water, the transformative power of grace wrapped around him. Yet, with it remained the lingering doubts. Would he have the courage to stand up for the man he could become, even before those who had scorned him? Could a tax collector, scorned by many, truly find redemption among them? Zacchaeus caught Jesus' eye, full of compassion and understanding, yet that question remained an unanswered whisper among the shadows of his heart. What would it take to finally embrace the man he was meant to be? As they shared that humble meal, the atmosphere in Zacchaeus' home began to shift even further. The sense of the simple foods danced in the air, mingling with deeper emotions: fear, hope, shame, and an awakening longing for reconciliation. Conversations flowed naturally, as though Jesus brought with him a spirit that hovered just above the table, binding the hearts gathered together. "Tell me," Zacchaeus ventured hesitantly, curiosity edging his tone, "what does it mean to be lost?" Jesus smiled knowingly, his eyes filled with a depth of love that seemed to cast out shadows within Zacchaeus' heart. To be lost is to wander without a guide, to be weighed down by burdens unseen. But to be found is to be embraced and cherished for who you were always meant to be. With each word, Jesus reached into the depths of Zacchaeus' soul, stirring a mingling of excitement and fear. Zacchaeus recalled the sheer emptiness that accompanied him during countless days of collecting taxes, facing the hateful glares of those he had wronged. He thought of the fortified walls he had built around his heart to fend off their disdain, believing himself unworthy of kindness. "And is there a way back?" he asked, his voice cracking, the vulnerability shining through. "There's always a way back, my friend." Jesus' words were gentle yet firm, a promise laced with the wisdom that unfolded like the blossoming of a long-forgotten flower. It begins with acknowledging the truth of your past. Every person has a story, and yours matters in the grand tapestry of creation. Zacchaeus leaned forward, captivated. Each word resonated like the gentle rippling of water, awakening a slumbering hope within him. The stories he had crafted around himself, gloating over riches, mocking the scorn, began to seem brittle, like dried leaves beneath the pressure of the new season. Perhaps he could rewrite his narrative, His heart raced at the thought of coming face to face with those he had harmed. Would they ever accept his change? Would it matter that he sought redemption? Questions swirled like butterflies in an open field, lifting his spirit yet grounding him in the fear of rejection. Suddenly, a knock echoed against the door, jolting the intimate moment. Silence blanketed the room as they turned to face the entrance. Zacchaeus' heart sank. Had someone come to drag him back into the shadows of his past? Who could it be? One of his servants whispered, peering through a window cautiously. Taking a deep breath, Zacchaeus rose slowly, feeling the gravity of his decision as he approached the door. "Let it be," Jesus encouraged softly, extending a hand as a guide. "There is nothing to fear in the light of truth." Zacchaeus opened the door, revealing a group of townsfolk, their faces a mixture of confusion and indignation. It was clear they had come as a band of judgment, tongues itching to lash out against his new association with Jesus. "Zacchaeus," one man shouted, finger raised, "have you lost your senses? You dare to defile your house with this man?" The outrage poured forth, laden with the bitterness of scandal. Zacchaeus felt his pulse quicken, as if the beat echoed the wall of judgment rising around him. But something changed. The warmth of Jesus' presence ignited something within him. Was this the moment to unveil the hidden truth nestled deep in his heart? Stepping forward, Zacchaeus gathered his courage. "This man has shown me grace, a light in my darkness." The words spilled out, trembling yet resolute. "I cannot remain shackled by the past any longer. I want to make amends." The crowd gasped in disbelief, each face a canvas of shock. "You? After all you've done?" The disbelief was tangible, thickening the air around them. Zacchaeus continued, his heartbeat drumming loudly in his ears. "I will restore fourfold what I have taken from others. Let this be my commitment to a new path." A collective murmur rippled through the group. Some disapproved, while others exchanged glances that hinted at the stirrings of doubt. Were they ready to believe in his transformation? Yet among them, skepticism lingered like a heavy-veiled as the crowd closed in, suspicions clashing with newfound hope. Zacchaeus turned his gaze to Jesus, who stood unwavering, radiating acceptance. "What will it take for me to be seen as whole again?" Zacchaeus pondered silently, feeling the tension of expectation ripple through him. Would they ever recognize the man he longed to become? In that moment of uncertainty, a new question arose within him, lingering just beneath the surface. Can acceptance be found not only in one's own heart, but also among those we have wronged? As the murmurs swirled in the air, tension wrapped itself around the room like a tightening noose. The townspeople scrutinized Zacchaeus, their expressions shifting from contempt to contemplation. Jesus' gaze remained steady, a beacon in the chaos that surrounded them. Zacchaeus could feel the weight of their eyes, each one a reminder of his past misdeeds. "What more could you possibly offer?" Another voice broke in, sharper than the rest. "Words alone cannot erase the years you've robbed us of our livelihoods." Resentment hung heavily in the words, coaxing forward bitterness that had simmered for too long. Zacchaeus took a deep breath, drawing courage from the quiet strength of Jesus beside him. "I understand the pain I have caused," he replied, his voice steadying, "and I acknowledge the bond I've broken with every deceitful transaction." He felt the shattering of old truths, the release of the illusions he had maintained for so long. "But I want to make things right." A woman in the crowd, her weary eyes filled with sorrow, stepped closer. "And what of those who can never forget? The families you've torn apart with your greedy hands?" Her voice trembled, echoing the pain of memories entwined with loss. "I would seek them out," Zacchaeus implored, his heart racing. "Not as a tax collector, but as a brother. I yearn to hear their stories not just of hurt, but of healing." The sincerity in his words sparked a flicker of hope, yet uncertainty remained the prevailing sentiment within the crowd. Jesus shifted slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of the weight of Zacchaeus' commitment. The rabbi's presence seemed to melt the barriers erected by judgment and shame, allowing for a new conversation to emerge. In truth, It is not only restitution that must be given, Jesus added, his voice smooth like oil calming a stormy sea. Your heart must dance in the rhythms of forgiveness, both from those you've wronged and from yourself. The crowd fell into silence, contemplating this. Would they be able to forgive the man whose betrayal had left scars deeper than wounds? Could they embrace a potential renewal in the life of their erstwhile enemy? Zacchaeus looked into the eyes of the townsfolk, searching for any sign of acceptance. He felt as though each glance was a pebble thrown into a still pond, rippling outward into currents of possibility. Those I have wronged deserve the chance to share their feelings, he declared, and I should seek to listen, to carry their stories with me. A.S.'s words left his lips. Something shifted within Hyman, understanding that acceptance was not simply granted. It was earned through vulnerability and honesty. It was an offering, a promise to embark on a journey, not just of repayment, but of transformation. Just then, a child's innocent laughter echoed from the depths of a nearby market, drawing gazes away from the clash of adult emotions. It was a moment pregnant with irony, a reminder of hope and innocence unmarred by the struggles of grown men. Zacchaeus reflected silently, could he rekindle that spirit in those he had affected? One elderly man stepped forward, his face a mixture of weariness and yearning. If you truly wish to change, he said slowly, you must tread lightly. The scars you've left behind do not fade easily. Are you prepared to walk this path of redemption, understanding that it may take a lifetime to rebuild trust? The question hung heavy in the air, a deep riddle expanding beyond mere words. Would he have the patience and resilience required for such an arduous journey? The weight of their scrutiny bore down on him, and Zacchaeus realized that redemption was not merely a destination, but a continuous pilgrimage, clothed in the fabric of each day. His heart wrestled with hope and trepidation. A new question coalesced within the murky waters of his thoughts. Can one man's sincere desire for change ignite a collective flame of forgiveness in a world that thrives on memory and resentment? The sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows over the crowd gathered below the sycamore tree. The murmurs faded into a hushed whisper, yet the tension remained thick. Zacchaeus felt as if he were standing on a precipice, teetering between the past that had defined him and a future that remained uncertain. Do not expect that tomorrow will wipe clean today's stains, the elderly man advised with a voice laden with wisdom. You seek a path of redemption, but remember healing takes time. The journey must begin with a willingness to bear witness to your wrongs. Zacchaeus nodded, deeply affected by the gravity of the words. He wished to bear his past, not as a burden, but as a lesson, a guiding star for the choices he would make in the days to come. For a fleeting moment, he caught a glimpse of Jesus among the townsfolk, the rabbi's calm presence exuding peace and confidence as the people wrestled with their emotions. Forgiveness may seem distant, Zacchaeus continued, addressing the crowd with growing fervor, but it is a seed that can only take root in the heart willing to nurture it, and I am here to till the soil of my wrongs. His voice trembled at the edges as he looked into the eyes of those he had wronged. I desire to offer recompense not just in silver, but in spirit. Will you stand with me as we embark on this path together? A murmur ran through the crowd. The weight of his words hung in the air, thick with uncertainty, yet tantalizingly close to hope. Some faces bore remnants of anger, while others shone with an ember of understanding that seemed ready to grow. Words are like shadows. They can shift and swirl, but what remains? Another voice broke through, a woman's, filled with both bitterness and longing. What remains, dear Zacchaeus, if you falter? Will more sorrow spill over as the rain follows a storm? The tears glimmering in her eyes bore a heavy historia tale of loss stamped upon her heart. Zacchaeus felt that familiar tug of regret twist within him, his skin pricking with the realization that his journey might unearth not only hope, but also the buried pain of others. It is true, he said gently, the past cannot be rewritten, but it can guide my future. I know it may take immense courage for you to forgive, but I stand here willing to listen and prepare to right the wrongs I've committed." From the back of the crowd, an older woman who had watched silently all the earlier exchanges spoke softly. "How can we be sure that this is more than just words, Zacchaeus? How can you prove your heart's yearning for redemption? Our spirits have been dulled by years of grief and distrust." Her challenge echoed hauntingly as many nodded in agreement. Zacchaeus took a step closer to the approaching darkness, feeling both small and resolute. "I cannot assure you of my success, but I can assure you of my commitment to start. My journey begins now, and I invite your stories. Each person's history carries weight and wisdom, but together perhaps we can find a path to healing. I will seek you out, listen, and do all in my power to restore what was lost." Jesus looked down upon him then, a gentle smile of encouragement gracing his lips, as if to share in the burgeoning hope that rippled through the gathering. Still, the path ahead was mist-laden, filled with uncertainties and challenges. Just as Zacchaeus began to sense a fragile opening, the voices of discontent turned once more. A tall man stepped forward, his arms crossed defiantly. "You speak of wanting to heal, but what you've taken from us cannot be easily measured. Do you know the weight of reputations tarnished by your hands? Can restitution be calculated in terms or time, or will you owe us what? A lifetime?" Zacchaeus felt a profound silence wrap around him, filled with the tension of unfulfilled expectations and the insistent beats of hesitant hearts. Redemption was still a distant star, shimmering just beyond grasp, and he felt the gravity of each gaze pressing down upon him. Could he muster the fortitude to navigate this fractured landscape? Would his sincerity spark a flicker of hope, or would it be extinguished in the winds of mistrust? As he stood upright, the evening sky began to ink itself dark with stars, and he pondered with a fragile heart. What does true repentance look like when forgiveness hangs in the balance, fragile and elusive? As the night draped its velvet curtain across the sky, the murmurs faded into uneasy silence. Zacchaeus felt the weight of expectations stitched tightly to his shoulders, each heartbeat echoing doubts that danced in the shadows of the gathering. The stars twinkled overhead like distant hopes, and beneath them, the air thickened with unresolved emotions. The tall man's challenge pierced through the tension, awakening fears Zacchaeus had tried to bury under layers of arrogance and greed. He met the gaze of the townsfolk, desperately seeking understanding amidst the storm of scrutiny. "I cannot measure what I have taken from you, nor can I offer a simple equation to measure restitution. I understand the faith you must muster to find forgiveness within," he said slowly, each word carefully selected as if they were jewels falling from a weary heart. "But this is where I stand," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "I stand before you as a man who has wasted his years in pursuit of wealth, while neglecting the community he stripped away of integrity. And this burden I cannot shoulder alone." He looked around, the darkened faces illuminated by the flickers of torches, each expression a mirror reflecting the hurt etched deeply in the scars of their lives. "If you will share your stories of pain with me, I will learn, and I will strive to return to you what I have taken not just in riches, but in trust, hope, and kinship. Every tale of sorrow shared is a brick laid down upon the path of my repentance." A soft gasp dispersed through the crowd, blending uncertainty with intrigue. A connection began to settle between Zacchaeus and the townsfolk, fragile, yet palpable. His heart raced at the thought of unearthing so many wounds, but he desired to be a vessel for healing and not simply a bearer of guilt. Through the murmurs, a voice emerged, resonating with the tremor of vulnerability. "And if our stories fail to reach your heart? What if, when we share our pain, you find it all too heavy and you choose to turn away?" It was the woman again, the one whose sadness had surfaced from depths of despair. Zacchaeus felt the sting of her question as it landed between them, heavy with doubt and wisdom. "Then I assure you, I will bear the weight of your fears. Do we not walk together in this life, with burdens meant to be shared? Let's not walk alone in pain any longer. I yearn for a chance to listen and to comprehend the lessons etched into your lives. For buried deep within your stories lies the path to my redemption. The crowd's hesitance began to melt like morning fog as Zacchaeus spoke from the depths of his awakened spirit. A man from the right, weary yet hopeful, stepped forward. You once embodied our struggles, Zacchaeus. Yet if your desire for restoration is true, can you bring forth your own pain and vulnerability? Can your willingness to share your truth spark something in the depths of our own? A pause filled the air. Zacchaeus inhaled deeply, realizing that the journey toward healing required more than mere words of apologies or grand declarations. It necessitated a mirror reflecting honesty, even in the face of his failures. My life has been woven with deceit, he began, his voice trembling. I once thought my worth measured by silver, but I now see my life is deficient without love. I have wronged many of you. My greed blinded my judgment, making me a thief not just in goods, but in trust. I chose profit over people, and I failed to see the warmth in a simple smile. My heart, it was cold and hardened. A stillness enveloped the gathering as his truth reverberated through the night, a shared understanding bridging their hearts, however cautiously. I stand before you, no longer as your tax collector, but as a man seeking to rediscover the warmth stemming from shared humanity. Feel free to hold my past against me and share the severed threads of respect. This is my truth, and I invite you to see it fully. From the gathering, a small stirring began. An elderly man, his face weathered by the years, pushed through the crowd, his eyes reflecting a well of sorrow, mingled with hope. Your past cannot be erased, Zacchaeus, but it can be transformed into a new beginning. Perhaps it starts by listening to one another. As the crowd rippled with hesitation and budding empathy, he felt the night shifting, the stars blinking in encouragement. Each gaze held questions unasked, and within this delicate exchange, new stories started to weave around the old, entwined like vines reaching for the sun. What transformations lie in the echo of shared stories? Zacchaeus pondered, as the stars blinked knowingly above an unending mystery of redemption yet to unfold. As the moments hung suspended, the air electrified with an interplay of tension and hope, Zacchaeus felt an urging pull, as if some unseen force was tethering him to the gathered crowd. The flickering torches cast shifting shadows, reflecting the turmoil within him and illuminating the faces before him, each etched with their own histories of struggle and resilience. In this space of vulnerability, the elderly man who had spoken earlier readied himself to share. My life, like this village, bears wounds deeply carved by betrayal. I lost my son to the grip of desperation, a victim of the taxes that weighed heavily upon us. He was driven to despair by your hands, Zacchaeus. His voice quivered, but resonated with a strength born of years of pain. And yet, here you stand, offering the sound of a broken man seeking redemption. Zacchaeus' heart sank, the blade of guilt piercing deeper than he expected. I'm so deeply sorry, he managed, though the words felt hollow against the depth of the sorrow unleashed. I never dreamed my actions could lead to such monumental hurt. I see the clarity now, where once there was only obscuring ambition. But what can I possibly do to mend what has been shattered? Silence swept over the crowd like a tidal wave, and anticipation brewing just beneath the surface. As more people shared their heartaches, each story folded upon another. The collective memory of the village came alive, shaping a tapestry of agony intertwined with a weaving of resilience. The burdens felt lighter as they were voiced. In this sacred act of sharing, something remarkable began to happen. A woman with gentle eyes stepped forward, hesitating at first, but the need for expression beckoned her. We all make choices, Zacchaeus, some grievous yet here. We find ourselves seeking something profound, a yearning for kinship, for healing, to journey together beyond the pain. The words lingered, settling in the air with the weight of understanding. At the mention of kinship, the crowd seemed to breathe in unison, the shared connection breaching the walls that had divided them for so long. Zacchaeus was beginning to realize that the restoration he sought could, perhaps, be born not only from his willingness to repay, but from his courage to embrace collective healing. That a sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves above them, a reminder of the unseen forces swirling about, beckoning them toward a transformative awakening. The feeling deepened in Zacchaeus' chest. It was not merely the earthly belonging he sought, but communion, the sacred depth of existence he had consistently overlooked. Yet, deep within his soul, a question loomed, whispering softly amid the cacophony of his heart's turmoil. What must I release from my spirit to grasp what lies ahead? What hidden truths about myself still cling like moss to the cold stones of my past? As he spoke his thoughts aloud, the crowd fell silent again. Each face mirrored their own uncertainties, pondering Zacchaeus' newfound resolve. He could feel the weight of his past still hanging on the edges of this gathering, a heavy shroud yet to be cast away. And deep in the quiet, as if responding to his unspoken question, the whispers of the night settled about him, laced with the hints of that profound mystery of redemption delicately unfolding amongst the shared pain. Amongst all their stories lay the essence of human experience, flawed, yet yearning for light. What hidden truths still bind us to the shadows of our past? Zacchaeus thought, as the moon finally peeked through the clouds, illuminating the path ahead, but leaving crucial answers obscured, just out of reach, like the stars that twinkled overhead, a goal always to aspire to, yet elusive in its brilliance. As the moments stretched on, heavy with introspection and anticipation, the flickering torches continued to dance, casting elongated shadows that intertwined with the figures of those gathered below. Each candle's glow flickered with a breath of silent prayers, and within that sacred space, Zacchaeus felt the tug of the divine, a beckoning he could neither ignore nor fully decipher. From the depths of the crowd, a voice rose once more, filled with unexpected fervor. Zacchaeus, it called, the lips belonging to a young mother cradling her child. While you sit on the precipice of what you might do, consider also what you have already done. Your actions have echoes and lives far beyond your own. And with that comes the responsibility of your choices. Zacchaeus' heart fluttered at her words. The weight of responsibility transformed into a beacon of understanding. He had lived a life ensconced in material gain, seemingly impervious to the lurking shadows of despair he cast upon others. And yet, within him still raw and floundering was the flicker of hope. Could this communal act, born out of shared grief and aspirations, be the very process that lay the groundwork for his revival? The older man, who had first spoken, nodded thoughtfully, his lined face softening. Redemption is a journey, not a destination, he murmured, each syllable soaked in the gravity of experience. We must face our past and embrace the wounds it left us. Only then can we rise anew. Zacchaeus studied the faces before him, recognizing fragments of his own struggle mirrored back in the weary eyes that glistened with unshed tears. He thought deeply about the young mother, the trio of men bearing stories etched with wooden resolve, the elderly voices, and the steadfast whispers of the night calling forth their truths. Some had lost, some had endured, but all had survived. I will give half my possessions to the poor, he declared, the words escaping him as a rush of determination surged forth. His heart thrummed with the awareness that this proclamation was not merely a means of atonement, but the profound path of connection to the humanity he once dismissed. Yet, as he uttered the vow, a shadow of uncertainty trailed behind his fervor. Would this act be enough to bridge the chasm buried so deep under years of isolation? Another voice, this one sharp with skepticism, broke through the dim light of the evening. But what will that change? A stout man pushed forward, his arms crossed tightly. Will that ease the pain of loss? Will it honor those who have suffered? The question hung in the air, as heavy as the weight of unfulfilled promises that seemed to dance mockingly just out of reach. Zacchaeus felt the tightness in his chest as the tension within the gathering twisted into the question of its worth. What true change could come from monetary gestures